Imagine entering a stadium filled with tens of thousands of people and knowing that many of them are not waiting to celebrate you. They are waiting for you to lose the ball, waiting for you to miss, waiting for you to react. Some criticize your football. Some attack your character. Others target something you cannot change, the color of your skin. They tell you that you are arrogant, that you provoke people, that you celebrate too much, that you should stop dancing. And when you refuse to disappear, they become even louder. For many footballers, that kind of pressure would slowly destroy the joy that brought them into the game. But Vinicius Jr. chose a different response. When the noise became louder, he ran faster. When defenders became more aggressive, he attacked them again. When people tried to turn his smile into a weakness, he continued dancing. And when the biggest matches arrived, he scored. Not one,
but in 2 Champions League finals. By the age of 26, Vinicius had played 375 matches for Real Madrid, scored 128 goals, and won 14 trophies with the club, including 2 Champions League titles. But this is not only the story of trophies. It is the story of a child who traveled for hours just to train. A teenager who became one of football's most expensive expectations before he had fully become a professional. A young man who was ridiculed for the things he could not do, until he mastered them. And a footballer who was forced to fight battles far beyond the pitch. Before the white shirt. Before Madrid. Before the European finals. There was only a skinny boy from São Gonçalo. A boy with a football at his feet. And absolutely no intention of walking away from his dream.
Vinicius José Paixão de Oliveira Jr. was born on July 12, 2000 in São Gonçalo in the state of Rio de Janeiro. São Gonçalo was not the kind of place where success arrived easily. Families worked hard. Money had to be managed carefully. The roads were crowded. The football pitches were often imperfect. But none of that could stop children from playing. They used concrete spaces, uneven fields, narrow streets between houses. Sandals became goalposts. Bricks marked the touchline. And when a proper football was unavailable, imagination supplied the rest. For young Vinicius, these games were never quiet. Every match felt important. Every dribble became a challenge. Every goal produced an argument, a celebration, or a demand to play one more game before sunset. He was smaller than many of the children around him. He was not physically dominant, but he had something that could not be measured by height or strength: fearlessness. When older boys stood in front of him, he did not search for a safe pass. He moved toward them. He wanted the confrontation. He wanted the ball. And most importantly, he wanted to entertain.
Vinicius entered Flamengo's academy system. But the opportunity came with a problem: distance. Training was not simply a short walk from home. It required long journeys, early mornings, crowded transport, hours that tested the patience of a child and the resources of a working family. There were days when Vinicius traveled before sunrise. School still mattered. Homework still waited. Then came training. Then the journey back. Then sleep. Then the same routine again. At that age, many talented children begin to disappear from academy football. Some lose interest. Some become tired of the travel. Some families can no longer maintain the cost. Talent does not always fail because it is insufficient. Sometimes, opportunity simply becomes too difficult to reach. But Vinicius continued, and his family continued with him.
At Flamengo,
His raw street football began receiving structure. Coaches taught him how to move without the ball, when to stay wide, when to attack the penalty area, when to release possession, when to slow down. They did not want to remove his creativity. They wanted to make it more dangerous. And slowly, the child who played for joy began developing the habits of a professional. Yet one quality remained impossible to teach: the courage to face a defender and believe that the defender was the one in danger.
Then, in May 2017, at only 16 years old, he made his professional debut for Flamengo at the Maracanã. Flamengo's own account records that his first team debut came in a 1-1 league draw against Atlético Mineiro. He played only a few minutes, but it was enough. The child from São Gonçalo had entered senior football, and almost immediately, Real Madrid made its move.
Real Madrid were not signing a finished player. They were signing imagination, speed, potential, and risk. Vinicius had barely begun his professional career when the agreement for his future move became one of football's biggest stories. That kind of transfer changes everything. A normal teenager is allowed to make mistakes. A highly valued teenager is expected to justify the investment immediately. Every missed chance becomes a warning. Every poor performance becomes a debate. Every ordinary moment becomes evidence for people who already believe the club has made a mistake. Vinicius remained with Flamengo until he was able to move to Spain. During that time, he began becoming more comfortable in senior football. He scored. He became more influential. And he started showing that his talent could survive against experienced professionals. But eventually, the farewell arrived. He left Brazil at 18. Behind him were his family, his language, his culture, and the club that had developed him. Ahead of him was Real Madrid, a club where even established superstars can be judged after one difficult week.
Real Madrid confirmed that he joined in July 2018 at the age of 18. He had reached the destination millions of young players dream about. But arriving at Real Madrid and surviving there are two completely different achievements. Vinicius was about to learn that difference in public. The talent was visible almost immediately. Vinicius could receive the ball near the touchline and transform a quiet attack into chaos. He was fast, direct, unpredictable. Defenders were uncomfortable whenever he ran toward them. But after beating them, the problems began. The final pass could be rushed. The shot could miss badly. The correct decision sometimes arrived too late. He could create a brilliant opportunity and then waste it seconds later. At first, people were patient. Then, the patience began disappearing. Every missed chance traveled across social media. Every poor finish became a joke. Compilations were created. Memes spread. Critics stopped discussing what he might become and began describing what they believed he would never be. Imagine being 19 years old, living in another country, playing for the most scrutinized club in football, and watching millions of strangers turn your development into entertainment. Most young players make mistakes away from the world's attention. Vinicius made his under stadium lights, surrounded by cameras. One incident made the pressure even heavier. During a Champions League match,
television cameras captured Karim Benzema apparently criticizing Vinicius' decision-making while speaking to another teammate at halftime. The images spread immediately. For many viewers, it became proof that even his own teammates had lost confidence in him. That could have been the moment the story collapsed.
A young player could have become cautious, stopped taking risks, passed the ball backward, hidden from responsibility. But Vinicius did not hide. He began working on the part of his game everyone mocked: his finishing. The decisive change came in 2021 when Carlo Ancelotti returned to Real Madrid. Ancelotti saw the mistakes, but he also understood something important. Vinicius did not need to have his personality removed. He needed direction. The coach encouraged him to attack the penalty area more directly, to make his runs with greater purpose, to use fewer touches when the moment demanded simplicity. And most importantly, he gave him trust. Vinicius began building a stronger connection with Karim Benzema. Benzema moved away from the defensive line. Vinicius attacked the space he created. One understood when the other wanted the ball. Their different qualities began fitting together. The improvement was not small. It was dramatic. Vinicius no longer reached the penalty area looking uncertain. He began finishing with control. He stopped treating every chance like an emergency. His numbers increased. His influence grew. And the same supporters who had once held their heads when he prepared to shoot now rose from their seats in expectation. The player people had mocked was becoming one of Europe's most dangerous attackers. But transformation is not complete until it survives the biggest test. For Vinicius, that test arrived in Paris, May 28th, 2022. Real Madrid against Liverpool. The Champions League final. One match, one goal. Liverpool began the final aggressively. They controlled long periods. They created chances. They forced Real Madrid deeper. Vinicius waited on the left side, looking for the space that might appear only once. The match remained level. The tension increased. Every tackle mattered. Every mistake felt dangerous. Then, in the second half, Federico Valverde received the ball on the right. He drove a low pass across the penalty area. The goalkeeper shifted. The defenders turned. And at the far post, Vinicius arrived. There was no time for hesitation. No time for an extra touch. No time to remember the missed chances or the jokes. Only the ball, the goal, and one simple finish. Vinicius made contact. The net moved. Real Madrid led. UEFA records the strike as the goal that secured Real Madrid's victory over Liverpool in the 2022 final. The player once described as wasteful had just scored the most valuable goal in club football. The boy who had been mocked for his finishing had decided a Champions League final with one controlled touch. Real Madrid held on. Vinicius became a European champion. But the importance of the moment went beyond the trophy. That goal changed his status. He was no longer a project, no longer a gamble, no longer merely a talented winger. He had become a match winner on football's greatest club stage. And yet, even as his football reached new heights, another battle was becoming darker. This one could not be solved with training. As Vinicius became more influential, the hostility surrounding him changed. There is a difference between criticism and abuse. A supporter can criticize a missed chance. A defender can dislike a celebration. A rival can attempt to provoke a reaction. But racist abuse is not football rivalry. It is an attempt to reduce a human being to the color of his skin. Vinicius faced it in multiple stadiums. Chants, gestures, insults, moments when the match itself became almost irrelevant. He reacted emotionally, sometimes angrily, and strangely, the conversation often shifted toward his reaction rather than the original abuse. People accused him of provoking crowds, of dancing too much, of refusing to remain calm, as though joy required permission, as though racism became acceptable when the victim responded. But Vinicius refused to remain silent. He pointed toward offenders. He spoke to referees. He challenged football authorities. He discussed the issue publicly, even when the emotional weight became visible. There were moments when he cried, not because he lacked strength, but because constantly being expected to defend your humanity is exhausting. The burden was enormous. He still had to perform for Real Madrid, still had to represent Brazil, still had to recover from matches. And at the same time, he was becoming a global symbol in a fight he had never asked to lead. But he continued speaking. He understood that silence might make his own life temporarily easier, while making the next young black player's life more difficult. Football had made Vinicius famous. The fight against racism was forcing him to become courageous. And when he returned to the pitch, he continued doing the things some people wanted him to stop: playing with freedom. By 2024, Vinicius was no longer surviving at Real Madrid. He was leading them. The number 7 shirt reflected his new position within the team. Defenders prepared specifically for him. Opponents placed multiple players in his path. And yet, when the largest matches arrived, Vinicius continued finding a way through. In the 2024 Spanish Super Cup final against Barcelona, he scored a first-half hat-trick. Then came another Champions League campaign. He delivered throughout the knockout rounds. And on June 1, 2024, Real Madrid faced Borussia Dortmund at Wembley. Another European final. Another night when history could be decided by one moment. Madrid took the lead through Dani Carvajal. Later, Vinicius entered the penalty area. He received the opportunity, and he finished. UEFA records that goal as part of Real Madrid's 2024 final victory, and Vinicius became the first Brazilian to score in 2 different European Cup or Champions League finals. UEFA.com. 2 finals. 2 goals. 2 European titles. The player once ridiculed for his finishing had become one of the most decisive big-game attackers of his generation. His 2023-24 season produced 24 goals in 39 appearances across all competitions. And in December 2024, he was named the best FIFA men's player.
Today, Vinicius is no longer the child being selected for neighborhood matches. He is no longer the teenager surrounded by scouts. He is no longer the young player watching people laugh at his missed chances. He is a Real Madrid leader, a Brazilian international, a 2-time Champions League final scorer, and a footballer whose influence now extends beyond the stadium. But his story is not finished. There are still questions waiting for answers. Can he lead Brazil to football's greatest international prize? Can he continue producing decisive moments as expectations grow even heavier? Can his voice help force football to confront the racism it has ignored for too long? No one knows exactly how the remaining chapters will unfold. But perhaps the clearest way to understand Vinicius is not by looking at the trophies. It is by returning to São Gonçalo. Somewhere in a narrow street, another child is playing.
The ground is uneven. The ball is worn. The goalposts are improvised. The dream appears too large for the surroundings. That child may look at Vinicius and see proof. Proof that talent can travel. That struggle does not have to become surrender. That improvement can silence ridicule. That joy can survive hostility. And that the place where a story begins does not determine how far it can go. Vinicius carried the freedom of those streets into the most demanding stadiums in Europe. He carried the dribbling, the courage, the smile, and the dance.
They criticized his football, so he improved it. They laughed at his finishing, so he scored in 2 Champions League finals. They tried to remove the joy from his game, so he celebrated even louder. They tried to silence his voice, so he used it for players who had none. Vinicius Jr. was never defined by the moments when he failed. He was defined by what he did next. He returned. He worked. He attacked again. And he kept moving forward. From São Gonçalo to Flamengo to Madrid to the summit of world football. This is not the story of a perfect player. It is the story of a player who refused to be broken. A boy they wanted to silence. Who made the entire football world listen.